In a small two-room house, without television, without phone, lived a boy who would one day lead one of the most powerful technology companies on Earth. The boy's name, Sundar Pichai. Born in 1972, Sundar grew up in a modest family. His father, Raghunatha, was an electrical engineer at a British company. His mother, Lakshmi, was a stenographer before she left work to raise her children. They were not wealthy, not even close. The family of four lived in a small apartment where every inch mattered, where dreaming big felt almost unrealistic. But there was something different about Sundar, something quiet, something patient. From the time he was young, his father would later recall, Sundar was curious about everything. He would look at machines and want to know how they worked. There was no computer in the house, not even a phone for years. And yet, Sundar had an unusual gift, an almost photographic memory for numbers. When he was just 12 years old, his family finally got a rotary phone. Sundar was fascinated. He would dial numbers over and over just to feel the click of the dial. Soon, he could remember every number anyone ever called. Family members would jokingly test him, "Sundar, what's Uncle's number?" And he would instantly recite it. But life wasn't easy. He grew up in a middle-class neighborhood where most families worried about the next electricity bill. His parents made sacrifices for his education. They couldn't afford luxuries. There were nights when there was no refrigerator at home, so food had to be cooked and eaten immediately. But Sundar never complained. He studied hard, focusing on school, quietly building a dream no one else could see. The camera shows young Sundar sitting under a dim yellow bulb, flipping through textbooks while his family eats dinner in the next room. He wasn't the loudest in class. He wasn't the most athletic, but his teachers noticed. He was always attentive, always ready with answers, always thinking one step ahead. Years passed. Sundar got into one of India's most prestigious institutions, the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. It was no small feat. Getting into IIT was like winning a golden ticket. Only the brightest made it through. But the journey was just beginning. When Sundar boarded the train to Kharagpur, it was his first time leaving home. The small-town boy was stepping into a much bigger world. And this is where the real story begins. The story of a shy, brilliant student who would face struggles, heartbreak, and life-changing decisions before he ever saw success. No one knew it yet, but this boy was on a journey that would change the internet forever. The train screeches to a halt at Kharagpur. Sundar steps off, his eyes wide, taking in the campus that would shape his destiny. IIT Kharagpur was a world full of brilliant minds, late-night discussions, and endless competition. For Sundar, it was both thrilling and intimidating. He was surrounded by students who had been toppers in their schools, the smartest of the smart. And for a moment, Sundar felt small. Would he be good enough? But Sundar had one weapon: relentless curiosity. He spent hours in labs, stayed up late solving problems, tinkering with circuits, exploring computer science. He didn't just want to pass exams. He wanted to understand how things worked. Professors quickly noticed his brilliance. He graduated with a degree in metallurgical engineering. And not just that, he was awarded the Institute's Silver Medal for his excellence. Yet, the world outside IIT was harsh. When he told his parents he had been accepted to Stanford University in the USA, they were proud, but also worried. His father had to withdraw more money than he had ever seen. almost his entire year's salary, to afford Sundar's plane ticket and first semester's expenses. It was a sacrifice that would change everything. The screen shows Sundar at the airport, suitcase in hand, his father standing silently, holding back tears. This was a moment of courage for both father and son, a goodbye that felt heavier than words. When Sundar landed in California, he was struck by culture shock. It was a different world, he would later recall. Everything was so big, so advanced. Even the labs had better equipment than anything I had ever seen. But money was tight. There were nights when he couldn't afford to buy expensive textbooks, so he borrowed them or spent hours in the library taking notes. The cost of living in the US was far higher than anything he was used to. He missed home-cooked meals, missed his family, but he kept going. And then came a turning point. At Stanford, Sundar was introduced to the world semiconductors, material science, and computer engineering at a level he had never imagined. His mind exploded with ideas. He decided to stay in the US after graduation, working for Applied Materials and later earning an MBA from Wharton. But here's where the story takes a surprising twist. Sundar joined McKinsey & Company as a consultant. It was a safe, prestigious job. He was doing well, but deep down, he wasn't satisfied. The narrator's tone becomes intense. He wanted to build. He wanted to create. He wanted to shape the future of technology. And then, in 2004, Sundar made a decision that would define his life. He applied to a then up-and-coming company called Google. At the time, Google was nowhere near the tech giant it is today. It was known for its clean homepage and its search engine, but it was still growing. When Sundar walked into Google for his interview, he didn't just see a company. He saw a revolution waiting to happen. He was hired, and this was where the world would finally start to see the genius of Sundar Pichai. But even inside Google, success wasn't instant. There were challenges, resistance, and moments of doubt. What happened next would test Sundar like never before. Sundar was first assigned to work on Google's search toolbar, a simple but critical feature that allowed users to search directly from Internet Explorer and Firefox. It wasn't glamorous work. Most engineers preferred the bigger projects, but Sundar poured his heart into it. Then came a moment that would define his future. One day, Microsoft announced that its new Internet Explorer would have its own search bar, and it would default to Microsoft's Bing, not Google. Inside Google, panic spread. Google's lifeline was search. If users stopped using Google as their default, traffic would drop. This could cripple the company. Sundar quietly stood up in a meeting and made a bold suggestion. What if we built our own browser? At the time, it sounded crazy. Why would a search engine company build a web browser? The market was dominated by Internet Explorer, with Firefox slowly gaining ground. But Sundar was convinced this was the future. He spent weeks building a case, gathering data, showing why a Google browser could make search faster, safer, and more reliable. Eventually, he convinced Larry Page and Sergey Brin to give it a try. And so, the project began. The birth of Google Chrome. Build a browser that's simple, fast, and powerful for everyone. In 2008, Google Chrome was launched. At first, many thought it was just another browser, but soon, users noticed its speed, its simplicity, and its clean design. And then, it exploded. Chrome started capturing market share like wildfire. It became the most popular browser in the world, transforming not just Google, but the entire internet experience. But Sundar didn't stop there. He led the development of Chrome OS, the lightweight operating system that powered Chromebooks, making affordable laptops available to students and schools around the world. He worked on Google Drive, Gmail improvements, and even Android, eventually taking charge of Google's most important products. Inside Google, people began to see Sundar differently. He wasn't just an engineer. He was a leader, calm, decisive, and visionary. But leadership came with challenges. He had to deal with internal politics, fierce competition, and the pressure of keeping Google ahead in an ever-changing tech landscape. There were moments when projects failed, when critics doubted him, when tough calls had to be made. Yet through it all, Sundar stayed true to his style, soft-spoken, humble, but unstoppable. In a world where loudness often wins, Sundar showed that quiet strength could build empires. But the biggest leap was still ahead. In 2015, Google announced a massive restructuring, creating a parent company called Alphabet. And when the world asked, who will run Google now? The answer surprised many. Sundar Pichai was named CEO of Google. This boy from a small house in Chennai had just become the leader of one of the most powerful companies on earth. When Sundar became CEO in 2015, the tech world watched closely. Could this quiet, humble man handle the enormous weight of running a company that touches billions of lives every single day? The challenge was unlike anything he had faced before. Google was no longer just a search engine. It was YouTube, Android, Maps, Gmail, AI research, self-driving cars, and so much more. Every decision he made had the power to affect the future of technology and humanity itself. It wasn't just about managing products. It was about managing people, managing crises, managing expectations from the world. One of Sundar's first big tests as CEO came when Google faced backlash over privacy concerns and internal debates about workplace culture. Thousands of employees staged walkouts. News channels around the world questioned whether Google had lost its way. Sundar didn't hide. He didn't shout. He didn't ignore the problem. Instead, he listened. He stood in front of employees and said, "We hear you. We are committed to making Google a better workplace for everyone." It was classic Sundar, calm, empathetic, but firm. And then came competition from Amazon, from Facebook, from Apple. The world of technology was changing fast. But under Sundar's leadership, Google doubled down on innovation. AI became a centerpiece of the company's vision. Products like Google Assistant started transforming the way people interact with technology, from speaking to their phones to controlling their homes with just their voice. Sundar didn't just keep Google alive, he made it thrive. Revenue soared. Google's user base expanded. The company invested in education, internet access for remote villages, and projects that aimed to make the world a better place. And yet, through all this success, Sundar never forgot where he came from. You can come from anywhere, he tells them, and still make it if you work hard and stay curious. The human side of Sundar Pichai is what makes his story so powerful. He is known for his humility, still soft-spoken, still approachable. He lives a relatively simple life compared to many Silicon Valley executives. Friends and colleagues often describe him as the kind of leader who listens more than he speaks, the kind of boss who makes people feel valued. But the narrator leans in with gravity. Make no mistake, behind that calm exterior is a man of steel. A man who makes some of the toughest decisions in tech, decisions that shape the digital future of billions. In December 2019, Sundar was named CEO of Alphabet, Google's parent company. Now, he wasn't just running Google. He was overseeing the entire empire. This boy from Chennai had climbed to the very top of Silicon Valley, not through power games, not through shortcuts, but through brilliance, patience, and vision. This is not just the story of a CEO. This is the story of a boy who dared to dream and never stopped working until those dreams became reality. Sundar's journey teaches us something profound. He wasn't born into wealth. He didn't have a computer growing up. He faced doubts, setbacks, and challenges at every stage. But he kept showing up. He kept learning. He kept building. Wear your failures as a badge of honor, he tells the students. You will have setbacks, but don't lose faith. If you keep pushing forward, you will surprise yourself with what you're capable of. That's the secret of Sundar Pichai's life. Quiet resilience. He didn't need to shout to be heard. He didn't need to fight to be seen. His work spoke for him. His vision spoke for him. And today, his story speaks to all of us. This is a reminder, the narrator continues, that greatness doesn't always start in the spotlight. Sometimes it starts in a small room, with a curious mind, a loving family, and the courage to take one more step even when the path is unclear. Sundar's life tells us, you don't have to be born extraordinary. You just have to stay curious. You just have to keep learning. You just have to keep going, even when it's hard. Somewhere out there, right now, another young Sundar is sitting in a small house, wondering if their dreams are too big. What will you tell them? Will you tell them it's impossible? Or will you show them that even the quietest voices can change the world? Stay curious, stay humble, keep building. Because if a boy from a two-room house in Chennai can rise to lead Google and Alphabet, imagine what you can do with your story.